Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Amazing Mindset chat room. And I'm absolutely delighted, thrilled, I would say, to have with me today Jaqueline Hollows. Now, most of you who are watching will probably have never heard of Jaqueline. And so what I tried to do was I tried to put something together to explain who she is. Who's Jaqueline Hollows? Who is this? Who is this lady you've got in the chat room? And what does she do, etc. And on a broad scale, Jaqueline, you are a coach.
Uh, yes.
Yes, yes, you are. Yes, but you're more than a coach.
Yes.
Yes, right. There'll be a lot of yes, no, maybe coming up in the next this unscripted chat. So the next thing I came to was I was doing recently a one of my tapas style podcasts, and the subject of the podcast is simply giving. Okay, and I had a few quotes about it, all the stuff, and I realized that you are a giver.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, or yes,
I'll take it.
yes, you are a giver. Yes, but not only are you a giver, you give. And that could be in helping people by coaching, but this, that, and the other. But you give lots of advice to people, but you also what I call really give. Okay, so if somebody really gives, they give um, without uh, wanting to receive anything. They give of themselves.
Hmm.
So I then was going to describe you as she's a real giver. Well, it didn't quite sound right. But you do really give. If you look at what you've done, and we'll look a little bit about what you've done in the past and what you're doing now in your world, and you'll find that most of it is to do with really giving.
Thank you.
Okay. Um, then I decided to try to find the word that describes someone who really gives. So I looked it up, and really giving without seeking anything in return is called altruism.
Yes.
Okay, which is a very strange word to try to even say, never mind spell. And so you are an altruist. So then I thought, well, is this going to be a nice title for the podcast? Jaqueline Hollows, altruist. I thought, no, it's not. She is an altruist. She does lots of stuff where she doesn't want anything in return. She's a real giver, but she's more than that. So, and then um, I remembered the chat you had with Dave Hill fairly recently. You did a well, you've had two podcast interviews with Dave Hill. This was from the second one. And at the time, you had just been invited to be a trustee on the charity, the Band of Brothers,
A
which you're going
band
to
of
talk a
brothers.
little bit about in a minute. And the guy who was interviewing you, so to speak, or looking at whether and said, and you asked him, why on earth would you want me to be in this position? And he said to you, because you're a ray of sunshine,
Yes.
right? Now, and then I thought, yes, this is the best way to describe you.
Oh,
So when I'm saying hi to everybody, welcome to the Amazing Mindset chat room, I'd like to introduce Jaqueline Hollows, the ray of sunshine. so,
oh,
so that's
oh.
nice, huh? Um, and then what that led me to was, yeah, it sounds lovely. It's a lovely description. Um, and then I was trying to work out if you are a ray of sunshine, that fits just about everything you've done because you have been in some very dark places. And I use dark in a prisons, and you've been in different communities which you could call oof. That's a oof. I don't know whether I could work in those the word dark comes to mind.
Yeah.
But the ray of sunshine brings light
Yeah.
to those dark situations or places. So I think the guy who called you the ray of sunshine has actually nailed it, as they say, in lots of the work that you've done. I mean, you've been called uh, inspirational by a lot of people, and yes, you do inspire, but lots of coaches inspire, and you've got this thing going called where you call yourself the impact activator, which sounds more technical. And but when you were described as a ray of sunshine by this chap in the Band of Brothers, how did that make you feel?
Mm. That's a great question because in the moment, I took it, I was like flattered and pleased. And I'm aware I talk a lot about sprinkling the fairy dust. So it's a version of that, the ray of sunshine. And then afterwards, honestly, afterwards, I thought, is that all I am? Is that all I am? I'm not intelligent. I don't bring this to the table. I bring the ray of sunshine. Is that it? And I sat with that for a while because back in the day, I used to be the party girl. And I wore the mask of this party girl, bubbly persona with the pain underneath. And a man said to me many, many, many years ago, he said, "Oh, you're quite intelligent, aren't you? Why do you hide it?" So
Uh,
the ray of sunshine brought that back a little bit. And then I reflected on it some more and I thought, actually, what does the ray of sunshine do? The ray of sunshine nurtures. It doesn't just bring light. Bringing light is amazing, but it also nurtures. It also provides, it also grows. It is needed, it is necessary. So describing me as a ray of sunshine could be flippant, but it could also be the core of what I bring to the table.
mm,
So I embraced it after that and thought, why not be the ray of sunshine?
yes, it's it is flattering when it's used in its and when it's just the words. Oh, you're a ray of sunshine. It, yeah, yes, you are. But let's go back in time a little bit then. You were also, people knew you for years as Mama J.
Yes, I'm
Now,
still MamaJ.
you're still Mama J. Well, that's lovely because you can tell everybody a little bit about Mama J in a moment because that was yeah, that's you. But Mama J was kind of created it, as I see it, through the ray of sunshine.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, Tell us a little about Mama J because this goes back to a company well, you ran Beyond Recovery, and you were going into prisons to
Yeah.
shed some light on in very dark places. So, can you just tell us briefly about that? Because that was the first thing that I was sort of what intrigued me about you when and not just you, but Beyond Recovery itself. Because I first came across that when I first went to one of the conferences, the Three Principles conferences in Hendon, and there was I think it was Derek Mason who got up on the stage and started talking about Beyond Recovery itself, and it was mind blowing. So please tell us a little bit about Mama J and the work she did, which only finished about a year ago. Yeah,
Yes. 20,
yeah,
early 25. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay, to try and summarize. Thank you,
just
by
just
the
where Mama J came from.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. That was very touching. Um, it's really interesting to see yourself through the lens of someone who's looked into you. You know, you
mm,
took, I thought, where's this going to go?
mm,
So I had been, for whatever reason, and you can never really know why we do these things, I had been working in the prison system, sharing an understanding called the three principles, bringing the ray of sunshine into that system for a number of years. So it was 2019, and I started in 2015. And in 2019, um, five of the lads that we trained as practitioners. So not only did we run groups in there, we also trained facilitators, trained people on the inside, and they were the best facilitators, I have to say. And only a few went through that program, and I maybe only 10, but five of them came with the Beyond Recovery team to Nottingham Prison in the north of England, and they ran a group in Nottingham Prison. They were in charge. Like, we sat in the room because we had keys and we had to escort them, but they ran the group and the one-to-ones, and it was amazing. It was amazing to see these guys talking to guys still in prison.
mm.
And so and we used to run a 3-day program. So after the first day, we all went out for dinner, and I think there were 2 taxi loads of us, there was a few of us. Went out to dinner, and it was Mother's Day in the UK. And we were standing in front of Wagamama's, and on Wagamama's, it
Right.
had Mum and a big heart. And one of the lads, Chris Mavinga, said, Mama J, it's you.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
had me
wow.
stand in front of and it stuck.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
they
Right.
all called me Mama J after that. And honestly, I kept it. So even when I stopped doing the prison work, even when I closed Beyond Recovery, I kept it. And my husband did say to me at one point, isn't that like a prison thing? Do you still want to keep that? And I was like, I think it's who I am. I'm Mama J. And people, older than me, younger than me, people see the name. Most people call me Mama J.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great story. Great story. When did you first go into the prisons to help?
So I'd been volunteering in the recovery community, addiction recovery community, for about 18 months in 2014, 13 to 14. And it occurred to me when I was doing that work that there could be a way of, it's a horrible word, but monetizing, finding out how can I run a business so that it can be sustainable. And I got led to a conversation with someone who worked as a substance misuse manager in a prison. And that was 2014 late. And I had a conversation with him. And I was early days in my understanding of the inside out understanding. So I was very fumbly, didn't know how to talk about it. And he was married to a forensic psychologist. So he kept saying, I'd say, well, we just have a conversation and people change. And he would say, but how do they change? Because he had all this knowledge of psychology, and he wanted to know what was the technique, or what was the paradigm, or what was the tool that I was using. And I was kept saying nothing. I just talked to them and they change. And here's a funny thing. He became not, he was like, I don't understand. And I got confused. So I said, let's just can we have a break? Can we have a cup of coffee? And we have a break. And we're having coffee. And I said something like, their thinking changes. And that clicked for him, because on his wall, on his desk, he had a saying, stop thinking and start living, which is a saying by Richard Carlson, who was a student of Sid Banks. And
Wow.
he said, I know what this is. This is the stuff that Richard Carlson does. And I said, yeah, yeah, that's right, because I knew the name. And then he was interested.
Hmm.
So he asked me to put together a proposal, which I did. And long story short, I started working after lots of training in how the prisons work in June 2015.
Wow. And the thing, the thing that really grabbed me when I first heard about Beyond Recovery was, first of all, the title, because they're seen by most people as beyond recovery. There's no hope for you, mate. Look at you, you know. Um, until somebody said at the conference, I think it might have been Derek, it might have been somebody else, I can't remember. And they were talking about there's a difference between who you are and where you are.
Mm.
Again, a massive one of those moments where you go, "Oh yeah, I never." I remember the first interview I did with Dave Hill, and I kept saying the same things like, I never saw it like that. It's just seeing things from a different perspective, isn't it? And of course, it's not these people who are in prison or in difficult situations, difficult circumstances in their lives. It's not who they are; it's where they are at that moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so for some people, for somebody to see that and go, actually, if we can allow them to discover who they are and not just where they are, there's still a chance they're not beyond recovery. And yeah, incredible. So
It's so interesting that you picked that up, Jed, because the people in the recovery world named me. So I walked into the office one day at the centre that where I was doing some volunteering, and they said, "Here she comes beyond recovery." So when I set up the social enterprise, I called it Beyond Recovery because of them. And then when I took it into prison, of course, the lads used to say, "Well, what's it mean? We're beyond recovery." You know, they got offended by the words. And then once working with them, they would, and I never explained. I just said, make of it what you will. It's whatever you think. So when their perception changed and their worldview changed, often they would go, "Oh, you mean there's beyond recovery?"
mm,
A
yeah,
lot, like you said, a lot the addiction doesn't define us, the crime doesn't define us. There's a beyond, and I just let them come to that themselves. So many times people would say, "Should we change the name?" And I'd say, "No, the name was handed to me. I'm not going to change the name," and it creates conversation.
yes, yes. Now, I once had a discussion with somebody regarding. I asked the question: Is it easier for people who've been inside to help people who are inside and to spread the message that there is, to find out who they are rather than where they are and why they got to where they are at that particular moment? And the answer I got was actually no, which I couldn't quite understand, because I thought, well, it would be easier for somebody who's been in to know how it works and what's going on. And it was a time when somebody said, I think Elsie Spittle was at the conference that year, and somebody said, well, Elsie's never been inside, but boy, they listened to her. I think she was part of
Yes.
some prison help service as well, wasn't she? And that was another thing, which was, wow, yeah, of course. Yeah, it's not about being inside, is it? It's about
It
what's inside.
it isn't. Yeah, that absolutely. There is 100% a level of acceptance that comes with lived experience.
Yeah.
So just for shortcut, an addict talking to an addict, a person inside talking to a person inside, a person who's had anxiety talking to a person who's had anxiety, who's got anxiety, a CEO talking to a CEO. There is a level of barriers are broken down because you pick up on and can feel that they have lived experience and they talk the language that you talk, whatever that is. So it's absolutely essential that we encourage that. And that's one of the reasons why we train facilitators in
Yes.
prison, because
Yeah.
those lads made a massive difference in our groups.
Yes.
Even just having someone sit in who had been through the program relax the whole room because they would see, oh, okay, well, there's a normal person, if you like, compared to these weirdos, meaning us. Like trotting out, what on earth are they talking about? However, I asked Omar Wilson this question, and Omar said, and he was a young black guy, mixed race, very, very street savvy. And he said, I would have said I would never learn from a middle-aged white woman. And yet you rocked my world. You showed me the mirror and what I could see in the mirror. And if you hadn't have led me there, I wouldn't have heard anything. So I came to see there is a balance, that absolutely lived experience is crucial and should be honored. And absolutely, you don't have to have lived experience to make a difference, because I didn't have lived experience of prison, but I did have lived experience of being human and
Mm-hmm.
making mistakes and getting it
Yeah.
wrong
Yeah.
and struggling, you know, and
Yes.
other stuff. So I leaned on that and I had conversations around that. And then that's where we met. So not if you're an expert coming in, I'm an expert, I'm a wise person, I'm going to teach you something, I'm going to show you how to change. There isn't, there's a massive barrier there. But we all came in as human beings connecting with other human beings with our foibles, and we shared our foibles, and
Yeah.
that's not normal in that world. Like the professionals come in with their masks.
Mm.
But we came in unmasked and we shared where we were vulnerable, where we had issues, where
Yeah.
we'd failed. And that
Yeah.
resonated because you don't have to be a smoker to understand addiction. You think of things in your life, like for me, cake or chocolate, and then I can resonate with what that's like, what thinking goes on to be able to not put down this
Mm.
or the drink or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just thinking about that. What was on that guy's desk? Stop
Yeah,
thinking and start living.
yeah.
It's a lovely, simple quote, isn't it? I mean, lots
It's
of
a
the
simple
stuff I
quote.
write about and talk about is all to do with our thinking. That's the thing that grabbed me about the three principles conferences, and some of the people who are what they call three P based coaches, um, and it's yes, that's the thing that shifted me to want to write about and to want to talk about and to want to discuss with people the, their thinking. I mean, I never. It sounds crazy, but I never thought about my thinking until about
Yeah,
until about 2018.
yeah,
You don't, do you? You just think, and
yeah,
then when somebody says, "Well, there's," it's quite incredible. So in all my podcasts and all my the books that I've written and stuff, the I've tried to get people to think about their thinking. Simple as that. Just think about how you're thinking. but that's too much for some people, and until they're ready for it, and then
Yes.
something just clicks somewhere, doesn't it? You know,
Yes. A lot of the lads that we met didn't know that they were the thinker.
yes, okay.
They didn't know. They didn't know. They thought that what came into their head was a call to action. That if they had revenge thoughts, they had to see that through, etc. So
Mm,
when they became aware, I'm the thinker of those thoughts, that shifted things because that helped them to see they had a choice, that they didn't have to. I remember working with a lad who he had done a terrible, terrible crime and paralyzed a man. He'd beaten him so badly that he'd paralyzed the man from the neck down. And he was on remand, which means that he was in a prison awaiting sentencing. So he hadn't been found guilty or found not guilty yet. Um, so of course, when you're on remand, the only thing that you can think about is how to get off, how to fight the system. It's unusual to spend much time thinking about your remorse or what you actually did. But anyway, he was very remorseful. And he said, and he was in a gang and all the rest of it. And his uncle was in prison with him because he's from a family of gangsters. And he said, I do hear what you're saying. I do hear what you're saying about wisdom. Because I asked them, does anyone have the thought, I'm not going to go out robbing tonight. I've got a bad feeling. And they all go, yeah, yeah, of course. I'm not going to sell drugs to him. He looks like a copper. And they go, yes, miss, we wouldn't be here if we listened to that. So I explained that that's wisdom, that's an alternative thought. And he said, well, I do get you. I agree. I agree. We do have wisdom. But how do you catch it? He said, because when I was doing that thing, I had that wisdom thought of stop, you're going to hurt him. But everyone was around me, egging me on. My family's there, didn't want to lose face. I just went with it. So how do you catch it? And what's fascinating to me about that is he started to see, oh, there is choice, but now I need to look, how do I catch it? Because he hadn't considered that before. He's like, oh
mm,
yeah, it's impossible because I have to do what I have to do. And just seeing that is enough. And actually, he went on. We were sitting on the lounges because sometimes me and my colleague used to sit on the lounges in where the pool playing was. They used to think it was very odd, but eventually somebody would come and sit by us because they get curious. And he came over and he said, I phoned my mum last night and I said, I'm sorry. And she said, what do you need? And he said, no, I'm actually sorry. I'm apologetic. She said, you're not ringing up for anything? And he said, no, I'm really sorry. So just from seeing that the wisdom thought is possible, shifted a whole load of behavior and obviously thought.
wow. Yeah. Jacqueline, you gave up the Beyond Recovery a year ago. Is it still going on through other people or
No,
something similar?
well, no. What we do have is a volunteer buddies scheme. So we had a curriculum, obviously, and we've turned that curriculum into a distance learning program.
Okay.
And I write for the prison newspaper, and people request to be on the program, and they get these packs, and then the volunteers write to them. There's a
Uh-huh.
system that you can write to them. So that's still going, but that's the only thing.
Okay.
It's called Beyond Buddies.
No. And how is the latest thing you're involved in as a trustee is this band of brothers? Is that something on a similar lines or?
So a band of brothers doesn't know anything about the three principles yet. They look after 16 to 24-year-old males who are living in challenging circumstances and could be at risk of engagement with the criminal justice system.
Mm-hmm.
And they help those young men. They have peer mentors who are older, who've been through it. And then they have like a team of people, and they have like rituals and coming of age, basically. They're based on some mythopoetic um, pillars that like Jungian theory and some other theories, and they have a rites of passage. So often these young men don't have father figures, etc. So they don't go through the rites of passage that young men need to be able to grow into civilians who will father well and etc. Uh, so that's what a band of brothers does. And I am involved actually because someone read my memoir, Wing of an Angel,
Mm-hmm.
and wanted to bring me in and saw that I was a ray of sunshine. And um, I see the good work that they're doing and it touches my heart. And I also see a place for how I could help with the understanding that I've got. And whether or not that comes about, I don't know. I certainly won't be forcing anything on them, but I can see how it could be in collaboration with what they're already doing
Mm-hmm.
to help people have an easier time.
Yeah.
So
So
it'll be interesting.
you're still very much involved in really trying to help those who are in what some would consider dark places or darker places than they should be.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
There's the
still a member of the Corbett Network, which is a fantastic organization who the members usually have, they employ people who have been in prison, and they have all sorts of members like Timpsons are a member, and many others. So I'm a honorary member of that organization, and I help out at the lunches, which are once a quarter. And yeah, I am because I my experience of going into prison, once I got over fear and the anxiety and a lot of other things, was that I was a talent scout. I met people in there that blew my mind with how creative and resilient and amazing and funny. And, there's so many people. It's a waste if we don't help them. It's just a waste. There's a resource in prison of clever, intelligent, beautiful minds that are just going to waste. They're the people who could make a difference in their communities.
mm,
They're the people who can come up with inventive ways of preventing crime or stopping knife crime or whatever. And we don't even listen to them. So I am heavily involved still because I really appreciate them, and I want to change our culture, and I want our culture to understand that you shouldn't just throw away the key. You should actually be helping people because they can be very valuable members of our communities.
mm,
And why not?
mm. Yeah, because of mistakes.
Yeah, and it costs us like 50 grand a year to keep someone in prison. And you could spend a quarter of that helping them understand how the mind works and providing them with some ongoing mentoring and resources, and have them be wonderful. I mean, Derek, for instance, is like
Hmm.
a wonderful, insightful human being that has helped many, many people. So why wouldn't we use the same money? It's not like we have to find some other money. Use
Mm,
the same money and help people instead of just putting them into dark places, you rightly called it, where they meet other people with dark
Histories. Yeah.
attitudes and histories,
Mm.
and they become better criminals,
Mm.
or they have to self-medicate. Um, the the editor of Inside Time, the prison newspaper, died a few years ago, and he was in prison. He started it because he was in prison, and he started writing in prison, and he just talked about how dark it is, how on a daily basis you see abuse, you see harm, you see degradation. That's not the way to help people. Even if we didn't
Mm.
provide any rehabilitation, if we just cleaned up our prisons and had people managing the prisons who cared about, I'm not saying the officers don't care, they do, but a system that cares about the people, that not the crime.
Hmm.
And we do have to protect the public. I agree 100%. And we do have to care for the victims. I've been a victim of crime many times, so I know what that feels like. But how to do that isn't to forever punish someone who's committed the crime. The punishment is the sentence. Then when you're in prison, you should live like a decent human being, not like worse than a dog.
Yeah, as you say, because behind those people where they are is a who they are,
Yes,
and somewhere in there, there's the if there's love, then there's hope. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And
I,
there's
I,
always love.
yeah. One of the stories I got in my first book is about that very same thing before I'd even heard about Beyond Recovery or anything, and the story called Lucky, which is how basically how a dog saves a guy by simply because I think the most poignant part of the story is that he once he has something else to think about other than himself,
I
he's
thought
he
that was
it helps him to find that he is worth something because he has to care for
for
the
sure,
dog.
for sure. For
Life
me,
is not all of a sudden life is not all about him.
yeah,
It's about him caring for,
yeah.
you know?
But for me, Jed, the most poignant part of your story, Lucky, was that for the first time in his life, an adult trusted him
Yeah.
beyond the level that he trusted himself. For the first time in his life, the woman, the counselor said, um, well, maybe you could take care of him with no, you need to do this and you need to do that. No rules, no. She absolutely trusted him. And because of that, somewhere inside him responded to that.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
Sid Banks, who people may not know, but Sid Banks always taught speak to the highest. She was speaking to the highest in him, the soul that isn't damaged, and the consciousness that can be trustworthy. And because of that, he saw it a little bit himself, a tiny little bit, and tentatively he started to test that out. And but that's what rose in him. That was the poignant part for me because when you do that, the highest speaks back. You can't
Yeah.
help it because it's
Mm.
there.
Yeah. Right. You mentioned briefly there Sid Banks. And we'll come to him in a second because he's the one who is encouraging everybody to think about this thing called the three principles, which I've mentioned a number of times on my podcasts and in the books and stuff, but I don't go into great details about it. Um, but the inspiration behind all my stuff comes from reading and listening to people who have followed his work and basically talk about mental health rather than mental illness. I remember Bill Pettit, the, um, at one of the conferences saying, you know, I spent 20. He said, I've got all the what you call them, certificates, and all the letters after my name when it comes to mental illness. He said, I'm the expert, or I was the expert on mental illness for 26 years. I was going here, I was speaking there, I was doing this. He said, when I listened to what Sydney Banks was talking about, he said, I realized I knew loads about mental illness, but I knew nothing about mental health.
Yeah.
And you go, how can you not know what? It's just the way you look at it.
Yeah.
You know. So I'm going to ask you about Sid in a minute, but I just want to pick up. Sid came into one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because recently on the LinkedIn, you you went to New York, and it was something to do with a peace conference, or something to do with peace, or you can explain a little bit in a second. But at the end of underneath this thing, you start talking about gratitude, right? And you listed a load of things that you're grateful for. And one of the things you said, and I just loved this one above everything else. You said, I'm grateful that life is full of adventures. I just thought, yes, wow. Because that opens up, doesn't it? You could talk for hours on that. What what made you write that?
So some of my adventures haven't been, pleasant, let's say. So I include them in that. Um, when I started Impact Activator after I closed Beyond Recovery, Stuart and Wendy, who ran the New York Peace Project, were students on that program. And when I started it, when I closed Beyond Recovery, I really didn't know what I was going to do next. I really didn't know. And for 10 years, I've been known as the prison lady. And, this pioneer, and wrote research papers and did this and spoke around the world. And it had become my identity.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that. I knew that. And I tried to not let that happen, but it did. It did. My ego loved it. And
I like that.
and but I also knew, and this was the same in COVID. I had the same thing happen, is that I always say I'm I'm a catalyst. Do with me what you need. Whatever I'm meant to be doing next, I'll do it next. I'm not attached to any one thing. But the ego sort of clings on a little bit. So I had clung on. And then when eventually I saw, no, this is done, you have to let it go. I, had a bit of fear, be nothing, that's it now. Everybody's going to forget me. What else can I do? Maybe I'll be a coach, because I don't consider myself a coach. I call myself a founder.
Right,
Because
right.
I start things and I help other people start things. But anyway, Stuart and Wendy came on, and I got frustrated during the last 12 months as the activator graduates went through the programs. Like, what can I talk about that they're doing? What am I seeing? Like, how are they activated? And then eventually, all out the blue, Stuart's running this New York Peace Project conference. He's never run a conference before. And he says to me, it is in part due to the activator, because you helped me see something different. I am a retired man. And I thought, well, I'm retired, and he volunteers going into prison and then doing this. And he thought, that's it. And then what he saw was what his perception changed into, why not do something else?
Mm-hmm.
Why couldn't I start something? And so when the idea of a conference came, he was like, why not run a conference? Just because I haven't run one before, just because I'm retired. And
Mhm.
he self-funded this conference that he put on. And then while we were there, Wendy said, we've been well and truly activated. I'm grateful for that life gives us adventures because I'm grateful that we never really know where we're going, but we're always going somewhere.
Mhm.
And for the ones that have been scary, and for the ones that have been upsetting, and for the ones that seem like, how on earth did this happen, when I'm at an airport going to Puerto Rico and I've got no visa and I can't fly, like for all of those experiences, those adventures, my son even says, because he calls me Mimi, what is it? Are you having a Mimi adventure? I'm so grateful for those adventures. And equally, I'm grateful for the adventure of finding a baby bird and taking it to a safe place and
Mhm.
walking down the lanes with my husband and seeing what we see. You know,
Mhm.
there's many, many ways of adventures, but
Mhm.
I'm great. I'm so grateful that I'd be part of that.
Yeah, it's lovely. And at the end of your grateful comments, which are lovely, you I'm not sure it was on that one. I think it was, no, it was somewhere else where it was talking about the year. It was a year since the breakup of Beyond Recovery, and you say, and I'm in gratitude forever for Mr. Sydney Banks. So somewhere down the line, you discovered the work of Sydney Banks, and it made some significant changes for you.
Yeah.
Um, Basically, would it be like it was for me? All of a sudden, you started to see yourself differently.
Actually, what happened was I learned about the three principles and thought, what a crock of
Yes,
please.
yes, yeah.
Um, I
Somebody once described it to me as um, um, a Buddhism for dummies,
yeah,
and I thought that was
yeah,
absolutely brilliant.
yeah, yeah. I honestly thought the people I was in a program and the three principles was just one part of it. And I thought the people who were like waxing lyrical saying, "Oh, you're gonna love this," I thought they were deluded.
Mm,
Um, I even thought it's potentially a cult. I was really. Mm-mm. But I was volunteering in the recovery community, remember? And I saw the principles in the people I was working with. They taught me.
ah, interesting.
And what I mean by that is I saw they were resilient and they didn't know it. I saw that they were creative and they didn't know it. I saw that when they were in their heads, they struggled, and that
Hmm.
when they weren't, they thrived. I saw it in front of me, and I had because I was helping with someone who did it, who was doing home detoxes. So none of this was paid. It was just me having conversations with people, and I had conversations with people about the expansive nature of consciousness and how that we're all built to thrive and so on. Nothing deep, nothing heavy. I didn't teach them the principles. I just talked about how this is possible. And they changed. They started having relationships and started recovering and started getting jobs. And I was looking at them thinking, this shit works.
Yes, yes, yes.
What is it? And
Yeah.
so I thought, wow, this is incredible. And actually I always accredit them. They taught me the livingness of the principles. And then I walked into a park. I was volunteering, making a film, and I was interviewing people ahead of. We used to have a big recovery walk. They probably still do recovery walk, and this year it was through Birmingham in the UK, and we led the way to this park, and I walked into this park, and it was full of all the stalls and all these people in active addiction, in recovery, in, what my husband calls ne'er-do-wells, like complete, and a range of people. And I was drenched in love. I could feel love pouring out of me. And I just thought, I love them. I have to work with them. And that was the day I knew that's what the principles are. That's what they mean. I didn't know even that was an insight until I was interviewed years later, and somebody said, "Oh, that insight was amazing." I was like, "Oh, was that an insight?" I don't
Yeah,
know
yeah,
what an insight was, but I
yeah,
had that feeling. I had to follow that feeling.
yeah.
So I'm a very simple person. I'm a slow learner. I just follow the nudges, and I don't have to make something of it. I don't have to understand how it works to know it works. Like, if
Hmm.
I see, I'm experiential. Like, if I see it working, then I accept that works, and I
Hmm.
might not know why.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I hope the people who are watching understand now why I found it difficult to describe you in the first place, and what you do, because you do so many things. Um, and I suppose to call you a coach is very broad. And we started out by saying, I said, well, of course, on the broader sense, you are a coach. And I guess what coaches do is help people. That's how I see them. There, I when I interviewed Lynn Brannigan, it was to do with her being, she called herself a facilitator.
Yeah,
And a facilitator comes from the word Spanish. Well, I know the Spanish word "fácil," so it means easy. So you're
yeah,
just making life easier for people. So that's what coaches do. They try to make life easier for people. Um, but as I said at the beginning, you've got so many bits that come into the whole Jacqueline Hollows. There's so many pieces that make up your persona and your life. And one of the biggest things you did was to write your memoirs in a book called Wing of an Angel. And I shall on the description of this video, I'll give people a. We'll see it now. Look at this. Yeah, it's beautiful. I've got a copy waiting for me in the UK. So during the summer, I'll be reading that. Um, I know one or two people who've read it already, and they've said it's what was the word that described it? I can't remember, but it was superlatives. So, but having said that, they also said it wasn't an easy read. It's quite deep, um, and yeah, it'll go into the dark places where the ray of sunshine came through. So, Jacqueline, can I just say it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for
same.
joining the Amazing Mindset chat room. I never thought that I'd get a chance to chat with you in the for this short amount of time, but just just continue to be the ray of sunshine. Keep giving light
Um,
where and as you said before, which was interesting, the ray of sunshine, uh, the sun, the sun isn't just the ray; it's the essence, part of the
it's
essence of
life.
life. So
Yeah.
life force. So that's what you are. Okay. And if you don't mind, I'm going to call this podcast Jacqueline Hollow's The Ray of Sunshine. Are you okay with
Oh, I am.
that?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
that's good.
you. And
In which
thank you for
case, we'll,
everything you do.
okay. Thank you ever so much, Jacqueline, once again. See you
Thank
soon.
you.
Cheers.
Bye. Bye. Bye.